Evening.
Councillor Salvord,
Hello.
Councillor Carmel,
Good evening.
Councillor Jens.
Good evening.
Thank you, everyone. And so, adoption of agenda. Can anyone move the adoption of agenda?
I'll move that the April 13th, 2022 City Council non-regular meeting agenda be adopted with the following changes. The addition of 6.2, it just disappeared on me. The addition of 6.2, the motion was up there, so thank you. 6. The Edmonton Historical Board 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan. 6.4 Edmonton Transit Service Advisory Board 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan. And 6.5 the Accessibility Advisory Committee 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan, with the deletion of 6.1 Women's Advocacy Voice of Edmonton Committee 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan. 6.3 the Edmonton Youth Council 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan, and 6.6 Anti-Racism Advisory Committee 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan.
Thank you. Second? Anybody can second?
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Hamilton and seconded by Councillor Mack. And any questions for this agenda? I didn't see any questions, and please call vote.
I'm a yes, Madam Clerk.
We're still waiting on a few votes.
I'm a yes as well.
Sorry, I'm in the wrong meeting. I'm a yes. Is he here? Oh, yes, sorry. Just Councillor Paquette, please.
I am a yes.
We have the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. I don't think we have any political items. Let's move to select items for debate. We only have 3 items tonight. Councillor Mack.
And I'll select those 3 items.
Thank you very much. So we don't have any vote on report not selected, and then request to speak. Do we have any speakers tonight?
No, we do not.
That's okay, that's good, thank you. Request for time, for specific time agenda. I think this is referred to the summary of agenda changes that is already on the motion on the floor. And can anyone move this motion?
The following items be dealt with at a specific time on the agenda. 6.2, Edmonton Historical Board 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan, first item at 5:30. 6.4, Edmonton Transit Service Advisory Board 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan, second item at 5:30. And 6.5, Accessibility Advisory Committee 2021 annual report and 2022 work plan, third item at 5:30. And sorry, I should have clicked in, but got too excited. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Salvador. Any questions? And for this request for specific time on agenda? None, and please call vote. Thank you. I'm yes, and I'm Kirk.
We're just waiting on a couple of votes. I'm locked out of eScribe. Yes.
Thank you. We have the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. Thank you. Do we have any councillors' inquiries? None. Reports to be dealt with different time, none, and requests to reschedule reports, none, and public reports. Let's move to the first item, 6.1.
Just to confirm, that's 6.2 because we have
Oh,
deleted.
sorry,
item
6.2. That's, I mean, yes, 6.1 was deleted.
And we'll just wait for our guest to join us.
I believe they're on the call already.
I am, yes. Is it all right for me to begin?
I don't have our guest name with me here. Madam Clerk, can you help me and with the next steps?
Sure. Our first guest is the chair of the Edmonton Historical Board. It's Dominique, and perhaps I'll just we can turn it over to them.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yes, my name is Dominic Shamoon. I'm the current chair of the Edmonton Historical Board for another 17 days, I believe. And then I will be turning it over to my worthy successor, a gentleman by the name of Steve Reese, who will be joining you at many of your future meetings. I also want to thank Councillor McKean, who was our council liaison up until the last election, and Councillor Stevenson, who has now joined us as our council liaison. We really value that direct connection to our work and the work and the insight that the council liaison role has been able to provide. As noted in our annual report, this year saw a restructuring of the board's committees to better enable us to fulfill our mandate and support the work of council. And this reorganization was the culmination of several years of work and strategic planning sessions. And so I'd like to recognize not only our current board members, but those who came before and their contributions to that work. And with the greater focus on our mandate in mind, we've also introduced a buddy program with each councillor having an assigned board member as a direct resource for support. And I'm pleased to say that we've met with nearly all of you since the election, and over the coming term, look forward to additional opportunities for one-on-one meetings to provide insight and advice and have a greater discussion about the issues of heritage that are impacting our city. And this was the direct result of feedback we received from previous councillors, that they were looking for a direct connection to the work of the board and knowing that they have a specific person that they can reach out to when they have questions and would like to discuss an item in further detail. And so, we believe this allows for a bit of a broader discussion and support for your work as heritage issues intersect with a variety of items, whether that's taxation policy or working towards the guiding values of the city plan. One issue I do wish to highlight that was mentioned in our report is the declining number of buildings on the inventory of historic resources. And this is directly attributable to two factors. The first, that there have been several years now without funding from the City of Edmonton to conduct neighborhood level inventories. And the second factor is that the number of demolitions has now outpaced the number of owner-initiated additions to the inventory. And so without those neighborhood level inventories taking place, if we don't see funding for those, we fully expect that the inventory is going to continue to decrease in size in the coming years. And that is a significant concern because that is the first step towards a designated property. And so wanted to raise that as a specific point for council to keep in mind and consider. And another issue I do want to raise was ever so briefly mentioned in our report. However, I think today's discussion regarding the high-level bridge is a perfect example of the ongoing issue that we face. As you're all aware, the high-level bridge is a designated municipal historic resource, meaning it cannot be demolished. And so imagine our surprise and our frustration at seeing a proposal to council from none other than city administration, which included as a proposed solution, the possible demolition of the high-level bridge. We often find that one of the chief obstacles to our work and an ongoing concern is the approach of the overall administration. Although we have strong and positive relationships with those in the Heritage Unit and the archives, we receive great support from civic agencies, we have positive interactions with many others. Overall, there is a bit of a concern about the culture in administration, that there is not a value appreciation, or frankly, as we saw with the proposed demolition of a municipal historic resource, that there isn't even an understanding of what historic resources and the role that they play in our city. And so we encourage council and through the city manager to ensure throughout administration that there's a greater appreciation for the value that heritage plays in our city, the cultural fabric of our city, the value to our neighborhoods and communities, and that appreciation really gets ingrained in administration. And so that would be a piece of encouragement that we wanted to highlight since our report was submitted. And with that, I know my time is out and happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you for our guests and to introduce all the reports and the work plan and for this committee has been done. So next is going to any questions if our council member have, and then we can start asking questions. Okay, just saw one, give a few minutes, and I saw one councillor's names pop up, and Councillor Stevenson.
Yes, just mainly want to pop in and say thanks so much to the committee for the work, and I am certainly looking, or to the board, sorry, I'm looking forward to getting to know you even better as we work together in the coming years. Just to your point around the recommendations in the report that we looked at today around the high-level bridge, I appreciate the comment overall. My reading of the report, though, is that the impact on the historic structure was considered as part of the analysis that administration did. Just wondering if you had also seen that. Again, I think administration did their due diligence in terms of looking at a wide variety of options. So just want to confirm that came through in the report for you as well, that the historic impact was one of the factors that led to that option not being recommended.
Of course, yes. I think our concern is mostly that the option of the demolition of a historic resource should never be on the table. And so, there are absolutely factors and recommendations may differ, but if the city is proposing the demolition of a designated municipal historic resource, that is a very bad precedent to be setting, because the point of a designated municipal historic resource is that it is not demolished and that its integrity is preserved for future generations. And so, we recognize the final decision of council and the direction that is going, and I think relatively, if not fully supportive of that. I think our concern is that the option of demolishing municipal historic resources should not be placed on the table, because that is the antithesis of what a designated municipal historic resource is.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that, and I think that's something for me to reflect on further, because again, I think from a governance perspective, we do like to see all physically possible options on the table to really weigh our choices. But I appreciate your point around the signal that sends, and definitely something I'll take away to reflect on further and just consider how how we talk to administration and the recommendations coming forward, moving forward. But yeah, again, thank you very much. I look forward to working together in the months and years ahead.
And one thing I'll add on that as well is, I think that's the culture piece we're speaking about with administration is, it's not to say that that shouldn't be mentioned or reflected in the report, but perhaps flagging that this is why this isn't an option. Here's an option that might come to mind. Here's why we can't consider that as a city. And so I think that's the culture piece we're speaking to is not that council should be excluded from information that should be considered, but that appreciation and understanding of what a municipal historic resource is and what that means could have been more strongly emphasized in presenting that information to council.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. No further questions from me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Hamilton.
I'll be really brief. First of all, Mr. Shamoon, thank you for your service on the historical board. I think you've maxed out your time. My question as you leave, as with your predecessor, what is something your advice to us in terms of keeping, I think you've done a really good job of outlining the challenges around historical, the preservation of historical resources in our city. What's some advice as somebody who's, seen some things around here in terms of what we should be watching for or to be mindful of? And I do appreciate your guidance around the high-level bridge discussion.
I think the one thing that I would, I guess, leave you all with is that the preservation of heritage is not exclusive to increased density. The preservation of built heritage is not exclusive to young, vibrant, diverse communities. I think sometimes that is presented as a dichotomy and you have to choose one or the other. And I think what we see is actually the exact opposite. I think if you walk along White Ave as an example, there's some fantastic historic resources. That is part of the cultural fabric. It's also one of the most exciting, diverse aspects of our city. It's a place that visitors come to. It's a place that local residents are proud of. And so, that mixing and that intersection between heritage preservation and all of the other things that we want to see and build and achieve as a city really can all work together and they really can complement each other. And so I think even when we talk about the city plan and recognizing that we're going to be a city of 2 million people in the not too distant future, that does not need to come at the expense of preserving heritage. And there are some really exciting examples in our city where we've seen a heritage resource preserved and adapted and reused for other purposes. And I think, we need to be proud of those. We need to celebrate those, and we need to learn from them and make sure that as we increase density and as we welcome 1 million more Edmontonians, that we also celebrate the built heritage and the history that our city has.
Well, that's a really great summary. Thank you again for your service on the board, and look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you, and thank you to all of council and to the previous council as well for the support that we've received as a board, and we really value the direct relationship and the ongoing dialogues that we've been able to have with both this council and previous councils.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Shamut, hopefully I pronounce your last name right. If not, my apologies. And thank you, Ms. Hamilton, Councillor Hamilton. Is there any more question? I didn't see any more question come out, and Madam Clerk. And is the next step we should ask question to administration, or we move to receive this as information?
It is to be received as information.
Okay. May I?
I'm happy to make that motion, Madam Chair, that that the report be accepted for information.
Second. Madam Chair, I think you're still on mute. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Second by Councillor Knack. I saw one councillor and come out, and Councillor Rutherford.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take a few minutes to speak again to the appreciation for the work of this board. I think I've definitely highlighted my commitment to and continue to want to see the historical preservation. There's that tension that's talked about in the city plan, but we definitely need to make sure that we're supporting the great work that your board has done over the past year and is planning to do going forward. And so I just wanted to express my gratitude for your continued advocacy and continued work in identifying those historically significant sites. So just wanted to take a minute to again say thank you and how much your work is appreciated from me.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Are there any other councillors to speak on this motion? None, and then it's called for a vote.
In favor.
Just Councillor Tang, your vote, please.
It didn't come up for me. Yes.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. Thank you. Let's move to the next item. It is 6.4. Do we have the guests for this item as well?
Yes, we do have our guests for all of our items are now on, including, including Lindsay Vanstone and Giselle General, the board chair and the board chair-elect.
Okay, thank you. And because I don't have the name in front of me and Madam Kirk, can you please just call our guest and for the 5 minutes presentation? Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Vanstone, whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. My name is Lindsay Vanstone, and I'm the current and outgoing chair of the ETS Advisory Board at SAB. And with me here is Giselle General, who's the incoming chair, with her term as chair starting in May. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you today some of the highlights from ETSAB's annual report and share our thoughts for the year ahead. For those councillors who we've not had the pleasure to meet yet, ETSAB is a volunteer citizen board that provides advice and recommendations to City Council, the Urban Planning Committee, and to City Administration about public transit. We prepare an annual work plan and develop reports and letters to Council. Ideally, this is based on City Council's direction and other matters of interest to Council. We may also include in our work plan issues that the board, which is made up of citizens and transit users, has identified that warrant additional consideration to improve the transit experience of Edmontonians. Some highlights we've had from the past year include a report that we presented on inclusive transit with recommendations on how to make ETS a more inclusive, safe, and respectful place for BIPOC transit users and BIPOC transit operators. So this included impactful stories from BIPOC transit users and bus drivers and recommendations to implement BIPOC-friendly human resource practices within ETS, such as anti-racism training. We presented another report, one on vulnerable transit user groups, including seniors, people with visual impairments, students, and newcomers to Edmonton, Groups who may avoid using or fear using transit because of a lack of understanding on how it works in Edmonton itself. And some of our recommendations included improved training programs and awareness programs tailored to these groups and timed with their needs. Beyond these reports, we wrote some letters to council, one about removing the name Grandin and any references to Bishop Grandin from the Government Centre LRT station, as well as a letter about our position to maintain masking on transit. And most recently, our subcommittee on sustainable funding models for transit submitted a letter in response to the report on the mass transit system, sustainable funding and service growth report. We've also presented at the Canadian Urban Transit Association conference this year, or CUDA, in the fall about the role ETSAB plays in bringing forward a citizen perspective of transit and creating a more equitable system. And finally, over the course of this year, we've had another subcommittee that's focused on safety and security for youth. That one's still underway, and we anticipate sharing the report with you in the next few months. Those were some of the highlights for this year. Typically, we would present our work plan for the upcoming year to you at this meeting. But as we have 7 new members who will join us in May, we are waiting to develop our work plan and subcommittees with these new members so that it can be included in that process and they're as motivated as possible to participate in the research for these subcommittees. That said, some topics that I would anticipate that are brought up for discussion during our work planning session include further work on safety and security, financial sustainability, the role of ETSAB with the regionalization of transit, and connecting active transportation and transit. Something I would ask of each of you today, please, councillors, is that during the question period, if you're able to let us know of some of the key issues or transit-related topics that ETSAB might focus on for the upcoming year, that would be really helpful to us for our discussions in our work planning sessions. Then we can be sure that ETSAB is doing work that's really directly valuable to council. And of course, we'll be sure to share our work plan with you after our work planning session. And I guess in conclusion, I'd like to say that we are eager to be at the table, to continue to be at the table to support the work that the city is doing on transit, including some of the recent issues on financial sustainability and regionalization. And we look forward to more in-person opportunities for ETSAB this year, such as reinstating the biannual luncheons with council and tours of ETS facilities and infrastructure so that we can best stay connected with you and align our work with your strategic priorities. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ms. Weinstone and board chair, and for this board and for lots of work you have been done. So relax, and I have name right now with me, and so 5 minutes, and for you, board chair elect Ms. General. You are muted. Miss General, you are muted.
Sorry about that. I had a connection issue from my office. My apologies. Counselor, could you repeat again your question? I think I'm having audio issues. Sorry, Counselor.
Counselor Ross, you're muted.
Yes, I'm muted. Sorry about that. I'm apologies. And then you have 5 minutes if you have anything you want to present, and then talk to council.
Oh, thank you so much, Counselor. I just want to express my excitement and feeling honored to be the recently elected chair for the Edmonton Transit Advisory Board. I have been part of the board since 2018, so pre-COVID times, and have worked with the board in that capacity, and I'm excited to do everything I can to ensure that the 7 board members, which is a substantial amount of new members, that they're onboarded, and I can support them in their willingness to provide input on how to make our city's transit better. Thank you.
Thank you for our 2 guests. And then right now it's time for our council member to ask a question. So I will give a few moments and to see the name popped up. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, I appreciate your question to the outgoing chair and the ingoing chair about what you think this council, and I'd be curious what other councillors think of that. But I want to flip it back on you and say, how do you think the ETS advisory board is not being utilized to its full potential right now? And how could it be? Or is it being?
Sorry, Councillor Rutherford, it looks like that guest is having audio issues.
Ms. General, I think that, are you able to speak to it? Are you having audio issues too?
No, I'm doing fine. I just would like to offer the opportunity first to Lindsay. I think there is potential to collaborate in a more fluid way. I think is what I am looking forward to as the incoming chair. I think sometimes as a volunteer-based board, there are times we get a little bit notified, maybe a little bit too late, when there are some operational decisions that has taken place. And I really hope that there are further opportunities for us to be told about these ahead of time. So that's just from my perspective. I'm not sure if I can see Lindsay's webcam, and I'm not sure if she's able to continue making comments on this, on how the working relationship can be improved. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yep. I think she's.
Yes, I think she's on now. Please take the floor, Ms. Vanstone. We still can't hear you.
Ms. Vanstone, if you're able to disconnect, if you can still hear us, if you're able to disconnect from the call and then call back in, that might troubleshoot.
So I guess I'll just ask another quick question to you, Ms. General, while we're waiting, as it's a forward-looking question. And, you know, I heard there's 7 new members that are going to be joining. And so how are you planning to do that work plan and, you know, gel that group together, you know, as the new chair?
I would like to, my plan is to draw on my strengths. I'm a professional volunteer coordinator, so I have a lot of experience with onboarding people who are dedicated to sharing their free time and contributing towards something they are passionate about. So I'm really hoping that I can capitalize on that to connect with all the individuals who are joining the board, to pay attention and to listen to what kind of contribution and outcomes they're looking for from volunteering. And one thing I really appreciate, again, think this is credit to the support of the administrative staff we have at SAB. We have a lot of good documents and templates from previous years, so we can use those as a starting point to identify what had worked in the past and how to make improvements, because cliche as it sounds, I still think we're in unprecedented times, but we can take it as an opportunity to make positive changes with the relationship between XSAB and City Council and admin. Thank you.
And do you have any, I know like on the agenda, you have Amalgamated Transit Union, but I know they haven't attended. Is there plans going forward to get them to the table and make sure that we're getting that perspective and having that dialogue with Amalgamated Transit Union?
I can take this one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I reached out to our liaison there, and he's been swamped with various things over the last few months, but he is planning to attend our next meeting. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I, again, just want to express how valuable it's been for me, just as a new appointee, a new counselor, a wealth of knowledge for people that are currently there, and I'm excited for the new perspectives coming in. So thank you for all of your work, and Ms. Vanstone for your commitment in that chair role. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. That Mr. Councillor Rutherford. Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Tam, please.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all so much for the service, and looking forward to your leadership, Giselle. I guess building on that last question around the involvement of the labor union, because I understand it's been, he's participated fairly frequently, and I just I'm curious from your perspective. It feels like a very actually diverse table with the perspective from ATU, from administration, and from just transit users. Are there perspectives that you feel is missing or that could be enhanced?
So something that we noted going into this round of recruitment was a perspective from the north side, because currently our members don't live on the north side. And so we have limited perspective of transit use from that area. I don't have the final names of who are the 7 who are going to be appointed to the board coming up. So I don't know exactly what their experience is on the north side, but I hope that that's something that we can incorporate better into the board, because I think there is a different experience taking transit on the north side than the south side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you and I have talked about this, just the perspective of the suburban transit user, that can be quite different from core neighborhoods as well. And you mentioned regionalization. Have you been, I didn't quite see that in the reports, but has the committee been following that conversation pretty closely?
Yeah, so that conversation initiated before most of us who are currently on the board were part of the board. And now I think it's coming back to the forefront. So it's something that Councillor Rutherford brought up at our most recent meeting and will probably be on the table for further discussion moving forward.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'll be interested in that as well. So just because you were asking what are some of the area of interest, I'll just flag that's one for me as well. And also the experience of suburban transit users. But thank you so much. I've found certainly your advice and perspective to be very valuable, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tam. I just want to take this opportunity to say my apologies for the mix up of my language tonight, because I was in the rush at the last minute to know I have to chair this council meeting and as deputy chair today. So thank you for your patience and understanding for that. Next, and Councillor Salvador.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and really appreciate our speakers coming out tonight, and Ms. Vanstone, really appreciate your commitment and your service. Thank you so much, and wanted to welcome Giselle as well. I just want to say, yeah, I've appreciated your advocacy for public transit for a long time, and I think you've already shown really significant leadership in that realm and have been a really sort of enthusiastic and visible transit rider in Edmonton. So thank you, and looking forward to your incoming leadership. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about is just the I guess opportunity for collaboration with some of the other agencies, boards, and committees. Thinking about the Accessibility Advisory Committee, even Youth Council, WAVE. How do you see ETSAB being able to work across those lines and sort of engage in some cross-pollination?
I think those are great avenues to pursue. We do have a couple members on our board who are liaisons for other committees, like the Arts Committee, the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Though it's been difficult to overlap or to make sure that we're at their meetings, it seems like there probably could be a bit more communication, but also better understanding of when those meetings are happening and how much overlap is permitted between the boards as well. Giselle, do you want to add anything to that as the incoming chair?
Absolutely. Because I've been in the board for 4 years, I can confidently say that there has been partnerships between the other committees where there's presentations that took place or sharing research and insights. So I am looking forward to initiating or restarting those conversations. WAVE and the Accessibility Advisory Committee had been the committees where we have had partnerships, but perhaps there's opportunities for others. So I think that would be really wonderful. And on top of that, to also touch base with the other agencies that usually attend ETSA meetings. Like I personally would love again to have a representative from the DATS advisory board. So from BEG, I thought that was really valuable, just within it on the transit side of things. So and I'm hoping that with the number of the new board members, that they would be willing to be the liaisons, and we can divide and conquer the tasks and responsibilities. Thank you.
Great. That's wonderful to hear. And yeah, really excited about the work ahead. And I will just say, Ms. Vanstone, one thing you said really stuck out to me and got quite excited that there could be a bit of attention given to connecting active transportation with the work that's being done around public transportation. I think that there's a lot of potential there to kind of have those streams of work intertwining, because I think they're incredibly related. So that's it for me. Just want to thank everybody again for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Councillor Tan, I saw you on the list. So is that from previous, or you have more questions?
Previous.
Oh, thank you so much. So I didn't see any more question come from our council member to the guest. And so in Planeti's case, may I ask anyone move this 2021 annual report and the 2022 work plan received as information? Oh, I saw one, Councillor Rutherford. And do you have a question, or you're going to speak on the motion?
I was going to put the motion on the floor.
Oh, perfect.
As the appointee for this board, for this advisory group, so that the April 13th, 2022 Office of the City Clerk Report OCC 00972 be received for information.
Second.
Second by Councillor Salvador. Thank you. Any question or speak for this motion? I saw none. Please call the vote.
Yes, for me.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. That is carried. Thank you, everybody. The next item is Accessibility Advisory Committee, 6.5. We have guests. I'm checking my list. We have the board chair, Tanya Navisier. Are you here?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And so right now I pass over to you and for 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, City Council, and all joining us this evening. My name is Tanya Lariviere. I am the chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. For those of you who may not be aware, the Accessibility Advisory Committee provides advice and recommendations to Council about facilities, infrastructure, programs, services, activities, and policies for the purpose of improving livability and accessibility in our city for people with disabilities. Our committee is made up of 15 volunteers who bring a lot of depth and rich perspective to the disability experience. The AAC has 3 subcommittees: policy, community engagement, and intake. The policy subcommittee deals with drafting reports and letters to City Council and presenting to you. The Community Engagement Subcommittee aims to engage and collaborate with stakeholders in Edmonton. The Intake Subcommittee is an ad hoc committee that reviews topics and items coming forward to the AAC. Sherry Klassen was the chair of the Community Engagement Subcommittee in 2021 and will continue for 2022. She has demonstrated steady, thoughtful leadership as we work to increase our community presence and strategy. The committee is thankful and stronger for her contributions. Paige Reeves was the chair of the Policy Subcommittee. She has been an incredible leader and contributor to the AAC for 5 years. She will be leaving the committee and will continue to pursue work and education in the field. She will be greatly missed. We are happy to welcome Zachary Weeks as the new chair of the Policy Subcommittee. We provided you with a digital version of our annual report for 2021, and today we will share a few highlights. As you're aware, we recently spoke to this committee in collaboration with WAVE regarding safety and accessibility of taxis and vehicle for hire and city transportation services. We want to publicly thank all of City Council for voting in favor of the motion put forth to advance taxi safety and accessibility for all Edmontonians. We consulted on snow and ice control and will continue to do so in the future. Snow and ice will always be a major safety and accessibility concern in Edmonton. The last time we met with the snow and ice team, we learned that accessibility awareness was not a component of snow removal training. We'd like to see the city implement accessibility training and awareness for contractors and subcontractors. An example would be to avoid piling snow onto an accessible ramp. In fact, the exact opposite should be done. Removing snow from the ramp makes it accessible for everyone. We appreciate the complexities of this and thank the city for continuing to engage with the committee. As you know, housing is a critical issue in Edmonton, not just affordable, but accessible housing. We reviewed the Leisure Housing Report titled Accessible Housing Research Study for People with Disabilities. Afterwards, we met with the Housing Department and learned that they are doing a needs assessment review and there is a disability checkpoint as part of their data collection criteria. We were also told the city needs to see, and I quote, a pervasive demonstration of need to build accessible housing. Currently, 99% of houses in Edmonton are not even visitable. This means we are building specialized housing. We assure you there is a pervasive need to build housing that everyone can at least enter into. And this year, and this is a year-end report. Sorry. And not a housing report. So I will leave it at that alarming reality and let you know that this is a key priority for us in 2022. We collaborated with the other equity-seeking committees on cross issues, as we have not before. And as experiencing this for the first time in this role, it proved to be a vitally important underpinning of our work with successful results. The chairs of the committees will continue to meet regularly and determine how our items of concern intersect. Last year, we also invited all 2021 municipal election candidates to attend a webinar we developed to help candidates think about inclusion and accessibility in their campaigns. And as an elected official, we had 2 webinars. Pardon me, I do not have control of my screen, apparently. We had 2 webinars, and we were pleased with the interest in both of them and the attendance to both of them. We also started to develop a more robust community engagement strategy and will continue to build on that. We have considered collaboration with WAVE and ARAC to increase our social media presence while learning how our committee's concerns intersect. We've also asked for additional support to assist us with this. We also met with partnerships and events attractions to discuss a human rights plan for the FIFA World Cup bid and wrote a letter in support of that. We met with e-scooter companies to discuss an educational campaign around rider safety and awareness, advised on assisted waste management, attended a meeting regarding the review and approval of the Valley Line Southeast Passenger Public Safety Program brochure, and advised on emergency shelter standards, to name a few items. All of our items can be found in the year-end report. Our goals for 2022 are to continue to engage and consult with the city on accessibility issues, especially around housing and transportation. We're developing and improving our social media strategies and community outreach. Our priorities are as follows: vehicle for hire, safe and accessible taxis, paratransit services, policy C602, accessibility for people with disabilities, snow and ice control, affordable and accessible housing, learning through an intersectional lens. As of May, we welcome 7 new members of the committee. Thank you for permitting us to be a part of the recruitment process. We look forward to and appreciate more opportunities to engage with City Council. It has been beneficial to have appointed council representatives. Thank you to Councillor Knack for his years, and we are very happy to welcome Councillor Tang and Councillor Wright as our current representatives. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today and would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Lavery. Thank you so much for your contribution and to this meaningful work, specifically at accessibility for all Edmontonians, and then in particular for our vulnerable Edmontonians, very, very important. And before I'm going my colleagues to ask a question, I would like to acknowledge Councillor Wright and Councillor Paquette, and joined us a long time ago, and then to present in this meeting as well. Thank you. So right now, Councillor Knack, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks so much for joining us today, and appreciate your presentation and all your work. When you said thank you for your years, I felt like that made me feel really old. Thank you for your years that you've been around there. One question I do have, because you're right, and when I think about housing, that's been the one area that I feel we never quite made the progress that I would have liked to have seen. So I'm curious, there's a new executive director for Urban Development Institute, Kaylin Anderson. I think about the executive directors of IDEA, Mariah Samji, and over at the Canadian Home Builders Association, Laura Bruno, and I'm wondering if there's a possibility of bringing those 3 together for a bit of a housing summit, if you will, to see how they can help advance that and work with their members to really finally push this forward in a meaningful way. And because I don't think we did that before I left, and I'm not sure if you've had a chance to do any type of engagement like that since then.
No, not with housing, and that would be really, really wonderful. Like you said, we would like to really push this forward this year in a meaningful way, especially as housing is on the docket.
Absolutely.
Accessible and affordable housing go hand in hand.
Absolutely, that's great. Okay, good. I think that's, and I mean, I see Councillor Salvador on the board, and she might even have some additional guidance, as she's a pretty big expert in good accessible housing design in neighborhoods. So, appreciate you were in excellent hands with Councillors Tang and Wright. So I'm sure they'll be there to support. So I just wanted to say thank you, and while I'm not on the committee anymore, I will happily continue to push for these different issues, whether it's housing, whether it's snow removal, and just thanks for all of the work you've done over the years.
We know that, Councillor Knack, and thank you for that.
Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for that report, Tanya. It's been such a pleasure participating in the meetings, and it certainly opened my eyes to, the definition of diversity and as a whole new layer to me. So I've really appreciated the learning opportunity. On that, so this is everybody on the committee are also extremely connected with the wider community, and I'm just wondering, was the AAC part of the Affordable Housing Lab through skills focused around accessible affordable housing? I imagine Paige might be a connection there.
Yes, actually, there were a few representatives from the AAC on that. I was also there.
And then were there some tangible recommendations out of that lab for municipal governments?
There were some recommendations, or maybe more key items, I would say, than recommendations. For example, housing registry, which
Mhm.
was also mentioned in the leisure housing report, and something we would definitely be interested in pursuing. In terms of actual tangible results, being that this is a marathon, I can't say that there's really been any tangible results at this point, which is obviously what we need to work towards.
Yeah, got it. No, I was wondering if there's anything we can sort of build off of from that work as well, because I understand it's quite substantial. Um, and thank you for highlighting some specific priorities, moving ahead. Um, I'm wondering if there is any kind of broad priority that is top of mind for you, because I think it's you have mentioned previously, bylaw review. And I think that's really interesting. And I think it's, all the advisory committee is helpful to kind of view it through the various lenses. Wondering if you can speak to that a bit.
We would love to review bylaws, and obviously there are many, but there are also some that will apply to us directly. The one that was brought forward by yourself and Councillor Stevenson, for example, the animal control bylaw, which directly affects those who have a guide dog or assistance animal. So there's a lot of, I feel there's probably a lot of bylaws that we can review where we could have an input, a relevant input.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so that's why sometimes I find it hard to, like what report that's upcoming will be relevant for the AAC. And I'm always like, I feel like all of them, everything, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah. So it would be good to sit down and take a look and do a really solid review of which ones we could contribute to.
Yeah, no,
And
that's
be
a great.
mindful of time and
Absolutely. Yeah,
energies
absolutely.
and impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much for this report.
Thank you. And thank you for asking about the bylaw review.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. And Councillor Wright.
Hi, Tanya. My big question is, how do you get it all done?
A committee effort.
You really do have some very engaged members in the committee, and I think that is just so great that and you're able to engage with other committees as well. I'm just wondering, as far as you talk about civic engagements in your report, and I'm just wondering how much tie-in you have with like the city's communication department.
Do you mean like the city clerk?
Well, I'm thinking like where Catherine Owen is the deputy city manager. Are you able to gain any assistance, like for doing some civic engagement, if you wanted to do surveys or if you wanted to do?
I'm sure we probably could. I don't recognize the name, but we've had tremendous support from city clerk, and we were in touch with communications when we, not directly, but through Mike Chow, when we put out a release for the taxi, safe and accessible taxi.
Okay. I was just wondering if any of that would help. And I'm just curious about one thing, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but is the advisory committee just for physical disabilities, or does it also look at people with developmental disabilities?
With developmental disabilities, all disabilities.
Okay. I was looking through information and I didn't really see anything there.
Right.
But you did mention, I know when we talked about vehicle for hire, there was mention of it in there, but I didn't see anything in the reporting. So I just wanted to just clarify that.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's default, obviously, to assume physical disabilities, and obviously there's a big spectrum of disabilities to consider. So maybe we can talk about that, or you can show me, just so that our communication is correct and giving the true story of who we represent.
Okay. All right, great. No, good. And yeah, it's been excellent working, and I think part of your mandate is to educate, and you've certainly done that for me as well, to bring an awareness and think about that accessibility issue, I think, sort of in everything that we do as well. So thank you.
Thank you. I can say it's been a wonderful learning experience for all of us on the committee too, as we learn from each other. We don't know what we don't know. And we're anxious to welcome our new members and learn from them and build a stronger community based on their experiences.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, to finish the question? Okay, thank you. Councillor Salvador.
Yeah, thanks so much, Madam Chair. And thank you so much, Ms. Labriviere, for being with us tonight and for your service and ongoing contribution. I do want to jump on the housing piece as well, because I think that's just a huge gap, as you've identified. And there was, through Councillor Tang's question, some talk around bylaw review, and I'm just wondering if you folks have been engaged with zoning bylaw renewal. I mean, that's a pretty big undertaking. I'm reflecting back to when city plan was passed. I distinctly recall that there were some concerns around AAC not necessarily, seeing that accessibility lens applied through city plan. And I just want to make sure we get that right through zoning bylaw renewal. Have you been involved in those conversations?
Not directly with zoning bylaw, but we have definitely talked about it as a committee. So that would be a really valuable connection to make if we can schedule that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about, Councillor Knack's going to get me going, but like the inclusive design standards in section 93 of the zoning bylaw, I think we can do a lot better than what's currently outlined there. And it's much more of a kind of on the side, voluntary conversation if people want to go down that path. But I think we can, have that larger conversation about how to embed that in everything we do. And I think a good place to start would be through zoning bylaw renewal and those conversations with sort of the external stakeholders that Councillor Knack mentioned. So yeah, would be a very valuable connection. And I think one other that I had, just in terms of budget, just noticing that it is rather less significant than other committees. Is that sufficient?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I mean, of course, there's, always room to to grow in budget. What our biggest budget priority would be right now would be to aid in social media support and that community outreach. And if we could, in a way, and we put a letter forward, perhaps collaborate with the other equity seeking committees. Perhaps there is a position that's actually built to do this, to build all of us equally, and with that, of course, intersectional lenses we talk about. That would be an increased budget, and that would be.
That's really. Sorry, you just got me going now. That's an interesting suggestion, sort of having that shared resource to be able to amplify the comms that are coming out of our agencies, boards, and committees. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That answers a number of my questions. leaves me with some paths to go down. But we should probably connect further if that's all right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Any further questions? So I did one. Councillor Tan, this is second round, right?
Well, I'm just happy to put the motion forward.
That's wonderful. And so if we don't have any questions, yes, let's move the motion. Councillor Tan.
I move that the April 13th, 2022 Office of the City Clerk Report OCC 00973 be received for information.
And I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Wright. Thank you, Councillor Tan and Councillor Wright. Any questions and before we vote? Please call.
Sorry, I guess I can use my remaining time if that's
Yes.
the case to just speak to it. I'm happy to put this forward. Of course, I think this committee does some tremendous work. It's been such a pleasure learning along and also get to work on some very specific policy areas like the vehicle for hire. And I'm looking forward to digging in with the snow and ice and some of the other bylaw review work coming up. And this was a very comprehensive report. Thank you for the work of the committee and thank you for the work of the chair.
Thank you for all of your support.
Any more? None come up. Please call the vote.
We have all the votes.
Please display the vote. That is carried. We have done all three items here. That's great. And then so by law we don't have any, and then motions pending, none, and private reports none, and any notice of motion or motion without customary notice. None. So our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.